Hello, my name is Kali Ikwe. Welcome to our program Violence Free World. Well, the last youth protest, aka EndSARS, remains very much in focus as we chart a way forward. Well, we've got a very special guest in the house, a retired Brigadier General, but I'll be introducing you to him only after the special report. Stay here. A mental catalogue of opposite twin things parade natural realities like plus and minus, negative and positive, good and evil, love and hate, life and death and darkness and light to a limitless point. Also very notable within this catalogue is a duo of truth and lie, from which stems the bedrock of the phenomenon known as fake news.
If the world information system and order had changed with the coming of the social media, we unlike traditional times when we used to have gatekeepers who would, by professional calling, would have to validate information or news, as it were. Now it's as if everybody is a purveyor of news.
We need to be careful of circulating fake news, because those who circulate fake news are as damaging as those who originated fake news.
The terminology fake news is an oxymoron that describes information presented as news, which in actual sense is not. Fake news masquerade as news with an intent to fool unsuspecting audience and readers. It is a practice that seeks to achieve certain selfish agenda with the potential to generate upheaval.
It makes you believe anything because of the gullibility of the people. I'm very unfortunate. That is what the political leaders in Nigeria, used to work.
The targeting of news, the sentiments of news, and the objectivity of news are all together, undermined, as it were, undermined and, of course, reduced to the personal vindictiveness sometimes of individuals.
There is a bit of ambiguity though as to just what can be categorized as fake news, given that there are instances of outright fabrications presented as news, correct information presented outside of its original context, and headlines that deviate completely from the body of the story, and also partial supply of facts for varying purposes.
I think going forward, it's important that we should all, as a matter of responsibility, treat every information or every news, quote and unquote, however you want to put it, every news from the social media, with some bit of discretion, and make effort to validate the news.
You can't stop whoever wants to circulate any news. It's up to us to look into whatever we want to say, the message you want to circulate as we received. We make sure we verify the authenticity of that information before we circulate any news we get at hand.
It is the worst thing that can happen to a people, especially if the political leaders, continue to use it.
Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka perhaps raised the most alarm when he warned that fake news would cause the Third World War. Recent incidents of unrest, particularly the EndSARS protest, has again, like other situations, been subjected to so much mistruth that has left many at a loss as to just what to believe or disbelieve. With social media, the taken for granted gatekeeping control mechanism for news reporting is virtually non-existent. Official regulation, therefore, is difficult, leaving practitioners mostly to their conscience to self-regulate, a measure that has largely not worked. Why the federal government of Nigeria continue in their effort to further regulate citizen journalism with tougher penalties, they may wish to consider the recommendation of the United Nations that it is necessary to subject all perceived mis- and disinformation to legality, necessity, and proportionality tests before limiting freedom of expression, even in cases of public health threats. This same measure will suffice to combat fake news, especially when the impact on freedom of expression is minimal. Restraints should therefore Be the watchword as we crave a violence-free Nigeria. Welcome back. Our special guest in the house is a Brigadier General. I hinted at much, though retired. Welcome to the program, Brigadier General Sani Usman, former Director of Public Relations of the Nigerian Army.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Okay, General. Fake news and doublespeak are in mix again as we try to explain the incident that happened at the Lekki toll gate particularly. Now, you hear things like heavy casualty figures, that the very next moment it is countered. There was shooting, then you hear there was no shooting. Would we ever know the truth? What do you think actually happened?
Well, yes, a lot of issues have happened, and it has generated quite a number of concern among well-meaning Nigerians. And the phenomenon of fake news and doublespeak, especially from the people in authority, I think should, be viewed from the fact that it doesn't all go well for the well-being of any society. I think the best thing now is to look at it in this way, in the sense that possibly, I'm not holding brief for them, the circumstances they found themselves at a certain point in time. But then this is predicated on the fact that we don't have existing, value system that take into consideration some of these issues when they happen. Spontaneously, people tend to, get totally disorganized. They may have the best of intention and they don't even know how to go about it. And that is why people are even advocating for so many measures. Take, for instance, the absence of a mass communication policy in this country, and enlightenment and continuous education of the public and the people, so that when you are in authority, you will understand that communication is very essential, because it is only when you communicate it, when you communicate timely and accurately, people will believe you and you will get the desired response from them.
Video clips abound of soldiers interacting with the protesters. One moment you see they're interacting rather cordially, impressively, I must say. Then again we hear there's sporadic shooting. What really happened? When did it go bad?
If you are talking about the recent phenomenon in which there were argument and counter-argument, if you look at it, the military were constitutionally invited based on the provisions of Section 218 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On the basis of that, and I think people should be honorable enough to say yes for the past 3-4 days, because there was serious, outbreak of, do I say outbreak of law and order in Lagos, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, up to Monday, then Tuesday before the military were called in. And I made mention of it. Given the canisters that I saw, I made reference during an interview about, look, this were what we call blank ammo in the military. And blank ammo, I know they don't kill. They were meant for field training exercise. And I still stand by my words that if that's what the military has done, using blank ammo and shooting on the air, I think it is a radical departure from the past, where we sustained collateral damages and casualties. And thankfully, there wasn't much casualty. So they should be commended, because they were able, within the limited available resources and time and the circumstances they found themselves, they were able to manage the situation as it were. And that is where the issue of misinformation, disinformation comes about, and the phenomenon of fake news. A lot of people are involved in this country in misinformation, innocently, because they don't know. But those who have ulterior motives, they always prefer for disinformation, putting stuff that actually they are not correct, and hoping that somebody will pick it up, will share it, and maybe base his decision or opinion on the basis of that. So basically, that is it.
Okay, why that friendly disposition, it's very, very commendable. I'm also trying to reconcile here why soldiers had to be pushed onto the street in the name of Operation Crocodile Smile, just as the NSAS was at its peak. Couldn't this exercise had waited? I'm bothered about the timing. I think it's somehow it sent the wrong signals.
Their actions are not surprising at all. Remember Operation Crocodile Smile, this is the 6th time. And even with Operation Crocodile Smile, there were similar concerns by some, from so many quarters, based on maybe perception, I must say. But as time goes on, they understood the fact that it is a well-intentioned, exercise meant to enhance the proficiency and professionalism of the troops, especially as regards to internal security operations. And as years goes by, and the security challenges kept on evolving, of course, the Crocodile Smile addressed some of the security challenges given the, the areas in which those exercises were held. Take, for instance, where Crocodile Smile actually started, I think it was in the south part of the country, and southeast particularly, and usually it was, I think, during the Ember months. And it, especially those of us that have that live in the southeastern part of the country. Once you are approaching the Ember month, apart from the heavy traffic, take for instance the Onitsha Bridge and what have you, there are reported cases of armed robberies, kidnappings, and wholesome criminal activities. On the basis of that, Crocodile Smile came up, and it was able to address, and there are records to show that, including, even the revenue of the country, was boosted in the sense that there was semblance of peace and security in those areas. So then, apart from that, there is also, for the first time in history, there wasn't, issues of violence associated with the Ember months, Christmas, and the New Year celebrations in those countries, and so on. And apart from that, the troops were able to synergize with other security forces, namely the Nigerian Police, the Department of State Security Service, and of course the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and so on and so forth. The Army categorically said it was going to address, issues related to cyber warfare. Now, we are living in the digital age, the 21st century, that there is so much concern about this cyber security issues, crimes, and what have you. We have reached a point that people now take over people's identity, talk less of issues associated with banking and host of other records, or even disrupting services, where things are being done electronically. If they hack into it, definitely you are gone. Your money will just fizzle out within a second or so. So basically, these were the issues the Crocodile Smile 6 were addressing.
Okay, General, we're going to take a short break. I'll be right back after this timeout. Welcome back. This is Violence Free World. We've been talking with Brigadier General Sani Usman, former Director of the Nigerian Army Public Relations. General, before we went on break, you actually touched on the digital dispensation. And now that we're there, let's just, as we're talking about this, there is this talk on regulating the social media. Recently, the governors of the northern states of Nigeria converge in Kaduna. I think even the Minister of Information was invited. And they talked so much, they harped so much on the social media and how it is being irresponsibly used by people and the need to actually regulate it. I don't know, do you think this is possible? This is realistic in the digital world, in the modern world as it is today?
Well, I think it is not easy to simplify such complex situations, okay? There is growing concern actually based on, proliferation of fake news, and we have seen the impact, on relationship, on economy, polity and well-being of the Nigerian society, particularly unity and cohesion. Therefore, I can understand they have every right to be concerned about it, more so leaders. But if you are looking at it from other perspective, is it possible to regulate the social media? I don't think it is possible because it's more or less like an ocean. How do you control an ocean? It is an idea that has come with its time, but definitely we know there are problems associated with it, particularly, and it's just like everything in life. Hardly you have anything that is perfect, so you have the pros and cons. How do you mitigate the cons to ensure that the pros are better used? And I give you an example. I could remember when I was doing a postgraduate program way back in Costa Rica, and there was an earthquake. And it was a serious catastrophe that almost grounded the economy apart from the casualties sustained. But the social media was used, to, rescue people. It came in handy. So how do we go about using the social media to our advantage? Now we are faced with this phenomenon of fake news, social media, and what have you. I think there should be more constructive engagement. How do we have a better use? How do we become more responsible in, in the uses of social media to avoid the phenomenon of fake news? I think the issue of social media regulation is a class struggle. Class struggle in the sense that the people, the elites, they have seen that the space has been open and they don't want to hold themselves to account to everybody, and therefore they want to regulate it, and so that people will not have a say. And it should not be seen that way.
But it seems the elites are not quite comfortable with the prevalence of social media. Yeah, you the elites.
I'm not an elite, and I was not in Ario House when that decision was taken, so I cannot speak for them. I think when you have them on the program, they can be able to elucidate further on that. But on a serious note, I think we need to be talking to ourselves more, because some of these things, they come about as a result of the fact there is a communication gap, especially between, the elderly in the society and the young. This is a digital age. We have to understand, that fact and see how best we bring these people on board. How do we communicate government policies? How do we enhance cordial relationship among the Nigerian society? It may interest you just using the social media.
Okay, General Usman, as we grind towards the heart of this interview now, let's look at the NSAS protest itself. The youth of Nigeria came out en masse to protest injustice. Though they anchored it on police brutality, aka NSAS, you and I know very well that this is not a trait that is peculiar to just the police. As other uniformed officers, the Army, Navy, Air Force, even the civil defense are all complicit in this act. Yet, I'm looking at what positives can we take from this now, and what does this portend for us as a nation? Government handling of the issue as well, did we handle this well? What does this portend for us? I ask again.
It's something that happened, and it has happened, and based on previous, observed, lapses on the part of the security agencies, particularly an arm of the police force, the disbanded SAS, Special Anti-Robbery Squad. And I think we have to give credit to the government, not only listening, but acting expeditiously on, on the demands, particularly defined foreign demands. And I think we should take advantage of what happened to critically examine, the factors, both remote and immediate causes of what brought about the answers and address them accordingly. But thankfully, the government is doing that. And answers is more or less like a watershed that brought about certain, things that people do not even know that either exist or they could be possible. Therefore, moving forward, I think, to me, it's an opportunity to critically examine a lot of things about the Nigerian society and make it better so that we will not even resort to protests that could be hijacked, that resulted to, wanton destructions of property and killing of innocent civilians and, of course, security agencies. We should not allow situation to escalate to that extent, and that means we should be able to open the communication line. Let us be talking to each other. Let us be listening to each other so that issues are trashed before they, blow out of proportion.
NSAS protests did not ask for the police to be withdrawn from the streets of Nigeria, which seems to be the case now. It's very, very terrible out there. I mean, imagine a society without police. For us as a nation, I think this is terrible. There's an obvious gap here. What can we do to engender confidence in our security operatives? We cannot remain like this, definitely. How can we go back to normal? I mean, a better normal.
You can't imagine that you, who is well respected, you volunteer for the well-being of the society, and it's the same society now declare you as an enemy. Some of your colleagues were brutally murdered, and your police station ransacked, burned, your arms and ammunition taken, that you cannot feel safe to wear the uniform, talk less, enforcing law and order, preventing crime. So you put yourself in their shoes, you understand the circumstances they found themselves. It's so sad, so pathetic, so unfortunate, and we shouldn't have allowed it to degenerate to this extent. And now, the argument, it is not just the police. Everybody knows that you cannot operate a society without peace and security. Therefore, peace and security cannot be, gotten out of the blues. There are law enforcement agencies, there are procedures, there are expectations on every citizen of the country. To what extent are we doing the best we can to ensure that that is done? And first and foremost, I think we should look at it that whatever that is happening within the larger society, it has impact even on the security forces and their families. Therefore, we should be conscious of that responsibility in terms of our attitude, in terms of our utterances. No system that is perfect. But if there are observed lapses, how do you go about addressing the lapses? Do you go to public spaces, or there are established procedures that you can follow, to ameliorate the situation? So that is one. Secondly, the present circumstances we find ourselves, and we hope it will be mitigated, because now that the police have been emasculated to this extent, who next and what next? The whole essence maybe is to make Nigeria ungovernable, make it rudderless, and you can imagine. And I was telling someone, okay, well, if we don't become IDPs or refugees elsewhere, each one of us are just like Somalia, we become warlords as per local government, as per ward, or as per family. Because that is what where we are heading to. The criminals are having filthy. People are raped, people are robbed, shops and, business are ransacked. So we shouldn't allow it to repeat itself.
Well, General, I think that's a very good point to anchor it here now. I think you've been most incisive. I'd like to thank you at this point for obliging us.
Thank you very much for having me on your program, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Let's have a violence-free world, violence-free Nigerian society. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll be discussing with Brigadier General Sani Usman, former Director of the Public Relations Nigerian Army. Well, I think this is where we anchor it today. Same time next week promises more if you endeavor to be here. Until then, please remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. And thank you for watching.
No more to violence, no more we're crying out, no more to all the killings, no, no, no more, no more to violence, no more we're crying out, no more to all the killings, no, no, hey, 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 no more, no more, hey, hey, no more, hey, hey, no more. No more. Every day I pray, say make you no delay for that, cause the way the thing they go. Oh, peace is all we need to make the water settle. So basically, we just struggle inside ghetto. What is supposed to